is shaking, you guys. Welcome back to the Let's Go Win podcast, where we are here to help you be happy, healthy, and wealthy. Get better every single day. The gentleman I'm going to bring on, this story is fascinating. He is a really he's a good guy, and he's got such a cool story. I cannot wait to share this with you. Johnny Dinkel is the CEO of LaunchPod Media, a top podcast company with millions of downloads worldwide. He hosts Manga Sensei, a free Japanese language program used in universities across the US, Japan, and Mexico, with a new app launching soon. His latest show, Underdogs, premieres in January 2025, and his fantasy novel, Skill Eater, releases this November, with chapters available on Spotify and Apple Podcasts. Well, Johnny, I was fortunate to be a guest on your podcast, and now you get to be a guest on mine. What's up, brother? How you doing?
Not too bad, man. I appreciate you having some reciprocity and let me come on to Let's Go Win. Actually give you some fun stuff and not just, I don't know. It's interesting going from a host to a guest, but it's with you, it's always just a good conversation.
I think we're going to have a good conversation. We certainly did on your show, and you've lived what I would say a very interesting, unique, and, maybe it's extraordinary. I'm excited to hear more of the life story. But, I mean, look, the free Japanese language program, your fantasy novel, Skill Eater, this LaunchPod Media. Let's start with, how did we arrive here, brother? Because your background, like I said, is unique. It's not the traditional path, if there is such a thing anymore. But tell me how we arrived at where you are today, brother.
It's been a confluence of wonderful people and a lot of eating glass. Like, I grew up in the Midwest, in the middle of nowhere, to military parents, and they gave me a great work ethic, and they gave me a good background. They were wonderful people and gave me morals and standards and things to live by. And I just kind of broke things until I kind of got where I'm at. And now I have a wonderful media agency. Like you said, we have a number of shows that are coming out. From my first fantasy jump into things with Skill Eater, I'm really excited about. But Manga Sensei was a big deal for a little while. It's kind of been a wild ride. Now I'm about to have my first little baby.
Oh, well, congrats. That's a life changer, and for the best of ways. Let me start with this, because it's not in your intro, but you dropped out of high school and yet, as you put it, hacked your way into college. What's the story there, brother? Like, again, you're not the first person to drop out of high school, but to get back, find your way into college, whether that's your path or not. What happened?
Yeah, so the story it starts off as a sad story. So I'm the oldest of 9 children. So let me start there. So my folks met in the military. Both were puddle pirates, Coast Guard. My family's a very big military family. And so after they left, they went back to the Midwest, middle of nowhere, stay far away from water. I don't know why they did that, but And when I was about just turned 15, almost 16 years old that summer, my dad, he worked in construction my whole life, and he tried catching a ladder with his hand as it was falling off a 3-story building, just knee-jerk reaction type of thing, and tore a couple muscles in his arm. Wasn't that big of a deal. Had surgery, workers' comp covers you, you're Gucci. Well, my dad's one of those guys that when you tell him to do something, he does, it's full in, all the way. So my father did not move his arm at all for months and got some blood clots. Well, that's kind of scary when you have 9 children and you're doing all this stuff. Well, it got worse where when they gave him the medication to solve it, they give you a vitamin that slowly dissolves the clotting of your blood and makes it it's an anticoagulant. However, when they gave him the anticoagulant, they gave him 23 times the human dose. That can put down an elephant. Not kind of kidding, like it can kill an elephant. My father bled out every pore, bled out of his eyes, nearly died. Still has some PTSD from it, but he was put out of work. You can't go back to work when you can't move, you can't breathe. And it was a big blow to the family. Well, in a big Catholic/Mormon family, it kind of became my responsibility to care for the family. So I dropped out. That was the option. The option was I could, I had been given, little bits here and there when things got tight and whatever. Everyone has their own journey, but when Dad got sick, he didn't recover for months, years. My dad didn't go back to getting a job till I was 19 years old. And so I stopped going to classes. I stopped doing everything. I picked up 3 jobs. I worked at doing in-home hospice care. I worked at a Subway, and I worked at a movie theater. And I worked about 85 hours a week from 15 and a half years old till I left home at 19.
Wow. So obviously this was somewhat of a forced decision to drop out, take care of the family. You said Mormon Catholic combined. No wonder we had 9 kids. That kind of makes sense now.
It does just a little bit.
Yeah. But all right, so you do this for the family. You step away for, it sounds like, well, your dad went back to work at 19. I'm guessing that's when whether you go get your GED or go back to high school, what does that look like, brother? Because again, you step away. I can see just kind of with your entrepreneurial mindset, I'm actually kind of surprised you didn't dive right into building businesses at that point. But what made you decide, you know what, I'm going to go back, get my education? Take me back to that 19, that teenage mindset.
19-year-old Johnny till about 27-year-old Johnny, 10-year period, is who my wife likes to call Angry Johnny. Okay. Angry Johnny broke 13 bones from brawls. Angry Johnny fractured his eye socket, can't see out of his left eye. Angry Johnny tried to find a way out. So I didn't go back to college till I was 22. So 19 to 22, 2 of those years, I was looking for a way out. I need to make sure my family is taken care of, and I needed to get out of Nebraska. Nebraska is a great place, the Shire of America, lovely people, good football team, but they say things about small towns for a reason, that you get stuck there. And I was a little bit of a pariah. I'd gotten in fights and broken my nose, my face, and I was working full time, and people knew, but no one wanted to say. Everyone knows your business in a small town. And so I took the first out that I could. And the first out that I could was really changed my life. There was a gentleman at the church that my mother went to that said he'd basically paid for an opportunity for people to go and do a Mormon mission. Those goobers that go with the name tags. And that was a way out. You had to sign up and do some interviews and stuff like that, and I did. And so I served a Mormon mission at 19, but they sent me to Japan. And it was 2 of the best years of my life. I'm not a practicing Mormon. I don't believe in the faith necessarily, but it was wonderful. I left Nebraska, got completely taken out, away from all the bad influences, away from all the rock and roll, away from all the hard things that were going on. And I, of course, went back to some of it and had to kind of fight my way out a little bit later. But I went and imagine this, a kid who had been, I know how much my grocery bill growing up was. When I was a kid, it was $620 some a week to provide for a family of 11 people. I paid every phone bill, paid the mortgage, paid the electric bill at 15 years old. And for the first time in my life, as a grown human being with a cognitive brain that works, I suddenly didn't have to worry about money. And my whole job was to go out and sell Jesus to people who didn't want to hear about it in a gorgeous country with kind people. No one slammed a door in my face. They just said, no, thank you. People were kind. And I just dove headfirst into the language and became super, super, super passionate about it and saved my life. The gentleman who was over, they have something called a mission president. He's kind of like the babysitter for all these 19 and 20-year-old kids. And when I was finishing up, he's like, hey, you go home and then you get out. If you have to hitchhike to Utah, get out. And within 3 days of coming home, I had moved out, gotten out. No, not saying my dad's a bad person, not saying it's bad, but give you an idea. just kind of the trap my father unfortunately fell into is when I was a month from coming home, he quit his job.
Got it.
So he was ready to pull me back into, I can work now. I have a skill. And within 3 days of moving home, I had moved out and started coming with a plan to get out of Utah. And that's where the hacking came into play.
So let's talk about the hacking because, again, this is fascinating. Especially, I'm excited. Your wife said 27, so something happened at 27 where Angry Johnny goes away, but we're not quite there yet.
No.
Talk about the hacking, brother. So you say, "All right, Nebraska, I'm back, and peace out. I'm going to Utah." I'm guessing still in the Mormon faith at this point. I'm assuming because
Yep.
Salt Lake, that area is obviously known for that, but. So you say, all right, Utah, here I come. I'm away from Nebraska. Obviously, you tie it in. I'm guessing you learned Japanese from not speaking it to learning it and teaching it, which we'll talk about. But you go to Utah, and we're still Angry Johnny, still processing some stuff, but hacking our way into college. What does that look like?
Yeah, so Angry Johnny comes back home, gets in a couple of small scraps to kind of situate himself, spats with dad, spats with kids, figured things out. Moved with a Japanese roommate. I don't know if you know this, but Kearney, Nebraska has the highest rate of Japanese kids per capita in the United States.
Nope. That's a new one on me.
Yeah. There is because the crop dusters and all, they have a very small airport, and the students will come from Japan and Korea and will get all of their flight hours at an extremely reduced rate. So they'll come and move out to Nebraska, and there's about 500 of them, and they all move out and they take flights and they just fly in flyover country for a year or two and get all their hours, go back to their home country and get a job while learning English. It's a great program, fantastic program. University of Nebraska at Kearney, big shout out to the Lopers. It was a fantastic program. Loved you that set up that program. But so Angry Johnny has no resources. Angry Johnny has a skill that is kind of weirdly useful now. So I pick up 3 jobs. Again, I'm working at Red Lobster. I'm slinging, I'm translating. Oh man, I'm a bad Mormon, but I'm translating porn, Japanese porn for kids at school, into English and into Japanese or vice versa. Ironically, solid gig if you can get it. If you're translating particularly gay porn, super popular with kids in Kearney, Nebraska, straight and otherwise. My biggest market was recently graduated, 19, 20-year-old girls from Nebraska who wanted some Japanese porn. And I was happy to oblige with translation gigs. I'm doing whatever I can to make some cash. I need money. I'm trying to get something, save up some cash, got myself a little roommate, split it with Hito, and I start coming with a plan. Like, okay, I need to get out. I don't have any particular skills outside of this Japanese. I'm not gonna be in the pornography world for forever. So I figure out that my best plan out is I'm looking around me at the successful people, and all of them have gone to college that I know. Everyone else is working as a farmer or a welder or at the grocery store. There's not a lot of options around. So I figure out, okay, I need to get to college. Well, I don't have a high school diploma, so that's not great. So I need to figure out how to get to college. So I dive into research for about 2 months, and I come up with a plan. Now, mind you, this plan not only works, but I end up later, I published with, I did research with the University of Harvard, Kyunghee University, the number 2 university in Korea. It was accepted for my master's program at University of Tokyo, the number 1 Japanese university, as well as published 3 times with peer-reviewed studies during my undergrad. And also was found out my final semester at BYU, where I eventually settled, after transferring 3 times, which is part of it, how I hacked into the program. Give you an idea how bad this was. When they found out, when you go to college, you submit, 3 papers that you've written, you submit your SAT. I don't have those. I don't have a GED. I don't have a high school diploma. I have nothing. So when they find out, they're like, I'm a ghost that's suddenly there, and I published 3 times with them. So I got a slap on the wrist and said, don't do it again. I'm like, sure, won't do that one again. I didn't write the papers that I submitted 1 out of 4 to get in.
Wow.
So the system was, once you're over 21 years old, you're considered a non-traditional student. And this theoretically in many universities still work. If you go get your GED, which is not that difficult, you can get it anywhere. Some places will even pay for you to do so. So you get sponsored. Go get your GED. If you turn around and get your GED, community colleges will nearly always accept you for having your GED, especially because most community colleges provide the GED program. So if you go get your GED after you're 21 years old at the community college, you can immediately, and sometimes often simultaneously, enroll in college courses. Well, when you transfer universities, they look at your entire portfolio. One of the interesting things about the transfer process, and I learned this because I was helping the Japanese kids fill out their transcripts from foreign universities. Well, I learned that because universities are set up so differently, they will often correlate courses, and they also have to figure out what matches, and they also only take courses that they can understand. So if you take a physical science 100 course, it may be, or a finance 101 course, they may see as personal finance somewhere else or as economics somewhere else, depending on the things covered. They don't have time to go over every university's stuff. What they do care about is how they sort your information. So I got courses. I took Japanese 101 and 102 because it was so difficult. I took courses and that would be accepted and were just easy A's, no work. I went to one course, the professor came and said, you will all get an A passing grade as long as you show up. I would just turn around and pay the kid that was going to the course $5 as long as he signed my name in and took a picture. I never went to that class. Didn't do a single thing. When I showed up for finals day, he looked at me like he was confused and then nodded and moved on with his life. So I chalked my courses full of one semester of community college courses and then transferred. When you transfer more than twice, they only look at your most recent transfer. Mm. So if you transfer from community college to community college, and then community college to local college, they don't look at your GED. They don't look at your SAT. They look at your ACT. They look at your grades and what transfers over. And to them, I'm a 4.0 community college student who must have everything. So I then transferred from there, and then I just started jumping. As soon as I could transfer colleges, I did. I transferred to University of Korea, and then I jumped from Korea over to BYU. And so they see, oh, he's an international studies 4.0 student from these different colleges. They only look the most recent two, University of Nebraska, University of Kyunghee. And I just looked like a normal, everyday student, but I still had to get in. So I had to be approved. So I called the mayor's office 19 times till they wrote me a letter of recommendation. And then I found and scraped their website and found every single keyword they had used to recruit students for the past 5 years, chalked it in one document, and then called BYU's incoming enrollment office 90 times, acting as different people to find out exactly how their enrollment process worked and how they chose students, and wrote one essay, one time, to get exactly what they were looking for. Wow. Got into college.
Well, I now understand why you're successful as an entrepreneur, because I wrote down 3 words that it's just clear as day. You're resourceful as hell, persistent, and just resilient, man. It's like you find a way to make it happen. Look, whether it was the ethical way, quote unquote, or you found the loophole, right? You found the way to do it, and good for you, because now Angry Johnny starts to go away at 27. Don't know what happened there, or just matured, met perhaps your now wife, and this is what happened, brother, because I want to get into what you're doing now, but your background is so fascinating.
So I got to college. College is wonderful. I meet my wife very shortly after going to BYU. She was on her last semester. I was on my first. Same kind of story there. She rejected me 4 times, finally said yes in the 4th. We were married a little bit over a year later. Love my life. Love that woman. Angry John. So at the end of BYU is where Angry Johnny flares up and then dies down. So my last semester, second to last semester at BYU, maybe a little before that, I was working, just trying normal job. First time ever. I just had one job, two jobs. I was washing windows, and which was a great gig. If anyone wants to say they want to be an entrepreneur, go wash windows. They'll pay you $100 a pop, and it takes 2 seconds. It's amazing, and it's good work. So I was washing windows, and I was working as a patent translator with Apple. Now, mind you, my Japanese has gotten really good at this point. I've been working Japanese now for a minute. My major in college was Japanese and Korean comparative literature. I went to a class, and the professor gave me my first ever bad grade. It was a 73. Now, I don't mind the bad grade. Mind you, after this class, I gave up. I never worried about classes again because when I asked what was wrong, he told me to pay more attention in class. And I said, okay, totally get that. Fair. Can you point on the paper what I got wrong and maybe like circle it with like a red marker, like in first grade, and show me what I get it wrong? And he said, pay more attention in class. And I said, yeah, Gucci, get that, boss. I appreciate it. Can you show me what's wrong? And he said, pay more attention in class, and closed my little notebook. And I looked at him and said, cool, fuck you. And I walked out and I was done. I was not happy. And I went home, and my wonderful wife, now of about 2 years, said, so you're just going to mope about it, or are you going to do something about it? And the next week, I started up a podcast. It was called Manga Sensei, or Learn Japanese with Manga Sensei. And I taught Japanese how I thought it should be taught. And I did an episode after episode after episode. And I taught Japanese from ground zero, absolutely nothing, to a master's degree through JLPT, the Japanese Language Proficiency Test 1, the highest level. And I put it all on the internet for free. And it took me a couple of years. I graduated. I finished college. I dropped out, actually, technically. But I finished up. I had my college. I started my company that very last to be a VYU. But at that time, Manga Sensei grew from a couple people on the internet, and I kept going. And by the time I finished, we had over 130,000 people listening every day. We had 3 million people subscribed. My methodology was being taught in 6 universities, and we had people, and every other week I'd have people that would. It was wonderful. I had one gentleman who had been dating a girl for 3 years, but to live in Japan, you have to pass a certain level of a test, and because of Manga Sensei, he passed the test and was able to marry his sweetheart. So it was a wonderful thing. And in doing that, I rolled that podcast into my company, where I started doing podcasts for clients all over the world. And I got to a point where I started making some good money. And this is where Angry Johnny goes away. I made a good show, and I got to about 5 employees, and we had bought our first studio. And my mother called and told me that Dad wasn't doing super hot. He's still around, but things started hurting him a bit. And I went back home to see Dad. Mind you, Dad is who made me angry. And I noticed my dad that did that wasn't there anymore. The guy who was still there was this mildly scared. My dad was tough as nails, man. Like, he wasn't there anymore. He had a chunk of him had gone soft and died, and he was just a sweet old guy, and he couldn't take care of himself very well, and there was no one to be angry at anymore but me. I drove out to go see him, give him a piece of my mind. Was what I was going to go do. It was 26, and then I went and saw him, and I couldn't yell at him. I was ready to punch him square in the fucking nose. Like, hey, look what I made of myself. Nothing from you. I built everything. I broke my ass. I built a company. I have employees. I have no debt. I went to college. I published. I wrote a book. I have a show that is the #1 show in Japan. It has been for 3 years. And the guy I was going to go be there and angry at, that wasn't him anymore. And so I went home and I let it go. And it hurt. And I decided I was just going to build stuff.
It sounds like it's a good idea because It sounds like afterwards, or I'm imagining life is not all sunshine and rainbows just because Angry Johnny's gone away, right?
No.
We've had some challenges business wise. We may have had some people do some nasty shit.
Yep.
And I think this is really what I hope people gather out of this. I say this often. I'm like, you need to forgive for you, not for them, for you. I'm curious your thoughts on this because growing companies, bad shit's going to happen. It just is. Look, not everybody is going to agree to the handshake, the signed agreement. If people want to be a dick, they can be a dick. And it sounds like you've experienced that, facing losing founders and debt, extortion, theft, and all sorts of stuff.
Yep.
I'm hoping this happened after Angry Johnny, but maybe not. So
it did.
Tell me about that a little bit.
Yeah, no, Angry Johnny is like, Angry, he can rear his head once in a while. I feel him inside, when I'm on a good workout, sometimes Angry Johnny pops up. I do jiu-jitsu and boxing. Maybe that helped. I don't know. We had a guy, we've talked about this previously off air and just chatting. I had a guy steal $250,000 from us. And I was ready to go knock on some doors, go back to old missionary days. You're about to learn about the gospel of Jesus Christ. Like, or at least start praying. That's the truth. And you know who I called? I called my dad. When that happened, I called him. Let's call him Joe. Joe stole my money. And I called Dad. I was like, Dad, I'm about to make a bad decision. And this is scared, quiet, meek Dad. And he says, "You're ready to face the consequences?" And I'm like, "Yeah, oh yeah. The consequences are gonna be. I'm gonna feel better." And he said, "You're man enough to make your own decisions." And I'm just like, "Oh, come on, not the guilt." And I just make sure your wife is too. And I'm just like, "Oh, come on." There is resilience and strength in taking a punch rather than giving one. I've had people steal, people extort us. I had one employee who tried to tell us they were going to sue us and said he knew stuff that we did. I'm like, what did we do? I'd love to know because it's news to me. I have to, how should I say this? I'm not going to let him have power over me that way.
Mm-hmm.
I can't. I got people I'm responsible to who care. I have employees with children. I'm going to have a kid of my own. If I go off the handle, if I make poor decisions, the thing that got me where I'm at is, like you said, it's resilience. It's knocking down. When we started LaunchPod, I didn't build LaunchPod off of, hey, I'm just another editing company. I didn't build LaunchPod off of, hey, I'm going to make you, X, Y, or Z popular. I'm going to make your podcast make money. I'm going to grow your show to get to the right audience. The reason you're doing a podcast is because you want to meet good people, make something you're passionate about, and you want to make some money. Because money just makes you more who you are. Money's amoral. And the morals are mine. So I'm not going to let him control. So when we got extorted, I called him on a bluff. When he took my money, I said, "You'll never work in this town again. Best of luck." We got some of those clients back. I made a little bit of the cash back. I think the guy's still on welfare. Or maybe he's in Bermuda somewhere. I don't know. I don't know how long you can live on $250,000 nowadays. But
doesn't go far, but it's with him for life. That's for sure.
Yeah.
I'm curious, brother, just because when you talk about the Japanese language, two words that immediately, there's about 9 words. I won't remember them. You probably will. Japanese language is fascinating to me because it's one word that will mean so much.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to throw one out that is really important to me. One of Lisa and my long-standing family friends, an amazing family out of Northern California. They have an incredible restaurant. Shout out to Mikuni. But they had a restaurant. I don't know if they still do, but it's called Kaizen. And so I started really digging into this word Kaizen because it's what I believe in life, right? Like growth mindset, getting better every day. When you talk about this, how much Japanese has been an influence on you, both from going over there, sounds like finding yourself a bit, finding some peace and harmony, at least while you're there. Are there certain words, because Ikigai, Kaizen, and I can see a list of them. I just probably chop the pronunciation, but these are a couple things that mean a ton to me. Can you explain how they can say this one word and it means so damn much? I think it's remarkable.
Yeah, no, so Japanese and Chinese, Cantonese, they use what's called an ideographic syllabary, which is a fancy way of saying they use symbols to read. And so Japanese in particular adopted Chinese symbols for things like nouns, adjectives, and verbs. However, they had their own language. So they imprinted symbols that represent, so like the symbol for cat, well, the Chinese say cat one way, I think it's gao or something like that. But in Japanese, they say neko. So they use a symbol for their word. Now this starts getting complicated when you start taking symbols that mean different things, like kaizen. Kaizen is the symbol to make restitution or to make better. And zen, I believe, if I'm not mistaken, is the symbol for good or yorokobi, zen, goodness. It's betterment. So it's literally to make restitution and make it good. But by itself, for example, the symbol to make better restitution is aratameru. And so the aratameru, they take the symbol and the next symbol, and they crunch them together, suddenly say different things. Kai, zen. Just like Zen Buddhism, you have a Zen there. You also have a whole different, that Zen in Zen Buddhism is a different Zen than Kaizen. The Zen there is a nothingness, an emptiness. So the Japanese language, there's many wonderful combination of symbols that when put together have these wonderful meanings. You take like Ikigai. Ikigai is to breathe, is to live, is to breathe. And Gai is to be outside of yourself. So you have these wonderful combinations that mean a lot. Even myself, I have a number of symbols I've written on my wall or I have tattooed on my body that mean a bunch to me. In fact, my favorite tattoo, the only tattoo I have visible, is the tattoo of 4 masks on my arm that have 4 symbols on them. The symbols are translate basically to my voice to myself, my face to others, the values to myself, and my responsibility to others, which is tatemae, honne, goodness gracious, I can speak, I promise, ninjo, and giri. And so those 4 symbols mean a lot to me. It's kind of how I base my life. I have a tattoo design that I just finished up for my left arm, which has the symbol mu, which is emptiness, on it, which is something that it's a place I can go where I can choose to take something bad that comes into me, acknowledge it for what it is, and then just let it go.
It's amazing. It truly, it is a fascinating culture. It is something that it's been a huge learning experience. It's been a profound experience and I don't speak the language like you, unfortunately, but it is, I never was able to ask that question. You mentioned something earlier. I'm going to switch sides back to your podcast with Launch Media. So you're very specific in, look, man, I'm not going to help you, just become some popular show. We're going to go make money. Yeah. Now, I will say, as a podcast host, in the traditional sense, you and I have talked about this, I haven't made money making the show at all. Mm-hmm. In the traditional sense, I have business relations, I have partnerships that have happened because of it. And I do believe my network is my net worth. And my network through podcasting is substantial. But you actually help people go, okay, cool, I want to start a show. And it doesn't have to be for free. It doesn't have to just be because you love it, JM. Mm-hmm. We can actually go do something, make it. What are people missing, brother? Because there's millions of shows like mine that aren't making money, but there is something amazing about doing it. How do you marry the two, brother? Because I'll just give it to my audience. Again, I do this because I love it. I do it because I meet amazing people. But figuring that part of the algorithm out, how to make money, that hasn't happened for me yet.
It's quite a fascinating thing. People that are so successful in many other areas. I mean, Jim, you've grown 3 companies?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, you've grown 3 companies. You're on your 4th book now?
I've written 3. Yeah,
3, yeah.
If I say, don't say 4. If my wife's listening, she'll kill me. I'm not
3,
writing a 4th.
3. Not 4. 4. 4.
Yeah, 4.
3 books and 3 companies.
Yeah.
Okay. If I came to you with a business idea, I said, Jam, I want to start a company and I'm going to start selling Japanese whiskey. Now, I love Japanese whiskey. I'm a whiskey guy. What would the first questions you would have for me be?
All right. I'd want to know, is it any good? I guess I'd start there.
We can
What's
share a
the
whiskey
plan?
after. Yeah, we'll take care of that.
Yeah. Who's the market? Why is this different? I like Japanese whiskey too, but why is this different, Johnny? And what the hell do you know about Japanese whiskey other than it tastes good, feels good, and in the tummy? What else, brother?
Yeah, so that's exactly right. So you asked a couple of questions there. What's my differentiating factor? How am I different? If you're just doing another business interview show, please, for the love of God, stop. You need a differentiating factor. Your business has a differentiating factor. If I asked you why I'd be coaching from, JM versus, Shaquille O'Neal, they're going to be different things. Completely different things. So we look at LaunchPod for the cross section of interest and authority. All of our shows have to have those two. We turn down about 1 out of every 5, 1 out of every 4 clients because they're either not interesting or they don't have authority. If you don't know what you're talking about, fuck off. I don't work with liars, especially liars that are trying to profligate things they don't know. So that's the first one. Interest, you have to be interesting. Some people aren't. Luckily, you are. So that's good. So base level, good whiskey, good content. Second, different. You need to make sure you have something different, whether it's your interview style, whether it's who you interview, whether it's when you interview, the length. One of the things that made Joe Rogan successful was he was one of the few people who went down for 3 hours. Check this out. Go do the research. Find a single politician that has gone over an hour and a half with Joe Rogan. They can't. Because they get exhausted, and that's when he gets his best content. Elon Musk didn't smoke weed until 2 hours in. So he had a secret sauce. People can get celebrities. We've had celebrities come through LaunchPod. That's cool. I've had celebrity shows call on shows that shows you've never heard of because they didn't plan it. They didn't have a marketing plan. So the other thing that I'll say when it comes to growing shows, you know who you're talking to. If you're doing a business show for your business network, that's great. But who's your show talking to? I was talking to nerds, Japanese nerds that watch anime and want to talk to cute Japanese girls. My intro song was just a song about flirting with a Japanese girl. It was great. Know your audience. Donald Trump, love him, hate him, don't matter to me. I don't have a dog in that fight. But you know what? He knew his audience. Damn well knew his audience. Donald Trump did not advertise on CNSBC. He advertised on dump trucks. He did. Knew his audience. He didn't make Donald Trump's hats. Okay, he could have made sweatshirts, any type of thing. Pins have been done forever, but he did a hat. It became iconic for good or for bad. But it was who wears hats? Middle America. He knew who he was talking to. If you're doing a podcast, know who you're talking to. The people when I did my show was 5 minutes long because it was easy to absorb in their day, particularly for busy people that want to learn a language. Give me something quick, easy, and that I can consume. So with your show, come up with your differentiating factor, figure out who you're talking to, be interested in authority, and then we come down to the monetization. You do need to grow. Absolutely need to grow, especially if you're doing sponsorships, but you got to get some money in the gate initially. And that's easy when you can go to a guest. I even did this with you, Jam. I think you're advertised on your episode where it was, hey, I'm getting this out to X people. We don't always advertise, or if you do, whatever, be like, or just say you have a sponsor. Your company can sponsor your own show and just in name only and say, we'd love to advertise you on your show, give you an ad read on your particular show, shoot me an audio file, throw it in, and we'll do it for easy, just what takes time to edit, $500. Your show now has made some money. The second your show gets sponsored, it is substantially easier to get big boy sponsors. Reaching out, communicating your guests. You don't have to sell your guests. You can literally take your guests and be like, hey, who do you think would sponsor this? Do you think QuickBooks would sponsor the show that we just talked about accounting for an hour and a half? Give them a holler. I just had the number one accountant of the Big Four jump onto my podcast. We'd love to have QuickBooks recommend that. If we get you in there, I believe we can get to 20,000 people of your target audience that you want. Here's my demographic information.
Wow. It's amazing how easy you made that sound. And yet I will tell you, maybe it's because it was such a passion project. I was just like, I like talking to people. But it all made sense. Everything you said was simple and yet extremely tangible. I mean, there was nothing, again, I say it often, we didn't split the atom there. You're like,
No.
Hey man, who are you talking to? Why are you different? I mean, it's pretty clear. Like that's pretty amazing. And the other thing, God, dude, I don't listen to Rogan a lot because it is 3 hours. I listen to the clips.
Mm-hmm.
But what you said is fascinating. He gets people to be authentic. After a while, you can't. After 2 hours, 3 hours, an hour and a half, people are wearing down. Now the real stuff comes out. That is fascinating. Absolutely fascinating.
Mm-hmm.
God, I could go so many different directions. You're just such an interesting dude. I guess what I would ask, brother, what's on your heart and mind that you just want to share? Because you wrote your fantasy novel, Skill Eater, or that's coming out, it sounds like, or it has come out.
Yep.
Oh, it should be coming out right now, I guess.
Coming out right now. We're final pass through.
Wow.
First episode will come out. What day is this podcast launching hereabouts?
That is a good question. I'll ask my team. It's in a couple months. So your book will be out.
My book will be out. Skill Eater. It's a novel about a young man and his wife who get, I should say, a young couple, as well as a devil who get transported to another world and have to figure shit out because it wants to eat them, and it's kind of cool. It's a lit RPG, so if you like video games, you'll like this particular book.
Where did that come from, brother? I mean, that's this is just something you've always wanted to do, Yeah,
no, I think, and this is kind of something that's been, like you said, on my heart, is I think business owners in particular are very creative people, creative problem solvers. We like solving things. The second you solve something that is such a big problem, it's a big boon. You feel real smart, and then you have to replicate it, and then it kind of gets hard. But one of the difficult parts with that is whether you do meditation, whether you do exercise, you still need to exercise your mind in a way that helps you recharge. I once heard the definition between an introvert and an extrovert is where they recharge. A lot of people consider me an extrovert. I'm an introvert. I recharge by going camping by myself once a month or so. Like, be alone in the woods and have time in the quiet and understand where I live. But you need to work out that brain. And I find doing something creative is a great way of doing it, whether that's painting, whether that's playing Dungeons and Dragons, whether that's singing or writing poetry. I think people should do something creative. So my brother is a big fantasy guy, and I like fantasy as much as the next person. We started talking about fun ideas, and I'm like, I run a media agency. I can do this. So Skill Eater, one of the cool things about it is we have a voice-acted audio version coming out 3 times a week, reading the individual chapters because it's a serial novel, so it's going to go for a long period of time. And then the first one is completely completed. They can go and engage with it, and you can listen to it with your kids in the car. It's not going to have anything terrible, but there's going to be a voice-acted audio version coming out 3 times a week.
It's cool, brother. Again, man, you just, it makes sense why you crush it as an entrepreneur. You see it and you just go for it. No matter how many times you get knocked on your ass, you get back up and you keep doing it until you win, which I absolutely love. So if somebody wanted to, Johnny, they're like, yeah, man, I'm in. I want to check out Skill Leader. I want to, manja. I think you said sensei, not manga. Manja. Did I say that correctly?
MANGASENSEI. So yeah, if you want to check out
Launchpad Media. Yeah, how do they find you, brother?
Yeah, I'm personally not super active on social media. I jump on LinkedIn once in a while when I get annoyed with people. So if you go into my LinkedIn, I think I have like 20,000 followers on there, but it's mostly just like me just annoying people, trolling. I think it's hilarious. Your job's not that exciting, bro. Just come on, let us be. So check me out there, Johnny, Johnny Dinkel, Dinkel. My company is LaunchPod Media. We're the number 2 largest private podcast company on the West Coast. We have number 1 shows in most categories, and all of my shows make money, which is always super fun. You can find us at LaunchPod, LaunchPod.media. You can also search up LaunchPod, will pop up top of the charts. Skill Eater, my book, as well as audio novel, is coming out on all podcast platforms. Simply search up Skill Eater. My writing name is super complex. It's J.A. Dinkel, which is my first and middle name as initials. Dinkel on that, but you'll find it other places. So my writing is also known as Daruman. Manga Sensei is also anywhere you can find it, manga-sensei.com, where you can go and I wrote a book. You can check it out. It's free. You can learn Japanese from zero all the way through a master's program free on my website. And I have vocab lists and videos and comics and a whole bunch of fun stuff you can use as resources, and listen to all 750 episodes anywhere you listen to podcasts today. And if you're at University of Oregon, Washington, Mexico, you're already using it. So congrats.
That's awesome. Well, brother, I appreciate you coming on, being as open and authentic and vulnerable. That's why you and I connected on your show. You're just a cool dude that's lived some cool experiences. You've lived life, man, and you keep smiling, which I love. Congrats on the book. Congrats on the baby forthcoming. Very excited for you, brother. And just thank you for showing up the way you did, man. You're awesome.
JM, it's always an honor to speak with you. Genuinely, I'm grateful you had me on the show. I'm very excited for what's going on with all your books and all your endeavors. People listen to it aren't understanding how much value they're getting out of it. And honestly, I'm very, like I said, when I interviewed you, I actually read your books. Like, they're fucking fantastic. So thank you so very much.
Thank you, brother. Guys, I'm going to sum it up real quick. Resourceful, persistent, resilient. If you want to go crush it as an entrepreneur, as a business owner, as a family man, those 3 things, those are huge compliments. That's what this guy does. It's who he is. It's the core of his DNA. Share this with someone. I swear this is such a fascinating story, and he was so willing to be so vulnerable. Please share this out with someone that you know, love, and care about. Until next time, remember, your mindset matters. I appreciate all you guys so much. Talk to you soon.